Hi viewers, welcome to Joshua Talks. Today we are going to discuss about the introduction to MySQL. But before discussing about what MySQL is, we have to have a basic knowledge about what is a database, what is database management system, what is relational database management system, and then we have to discuss about what is MySQL. Okay. If this is the first time you are watching Joshua Talks, please like, share and subscribe to Joshua Talks. Small information is that this session is completely a theoretical session because in order to get acquainted with MySQL practical sessions, first of all we have to know the theory behind MySQL. So for that reason only I am going to briefly describe about all the basic concepts before learning MySQL. Okay, chalo, let's start. You may encounter many of the unknown terms during our sessions discussion, but don't get confused. In the forthcoming sessions, we'll be clearly discussing about what those terms mean and what exactly the term is and where we are going to use the term. A detailed discussion of what is DBMS, what is RDBMS, all these kinds of things I'll be making them in a separate video, but for the users who wanted to know about MySQL, I cannot go directly to MySQL because there are some basic terms which you have to discuss before discussing the concepts of MySQL. So for that reason, I am going to give a small introduction about all the basic concepts which are required to understand what is MySQL. Okay. Let us go with the what is DBMS. Okay, DBMS is nothing but a database management system. It means it is a collection of data, right? Here collection of data means data can be collected in different forms. In DBMS we are going to collect data in different forms such as schemas, tables, queries, reports, views and many other objects. Okay, in the forthcoming discussion you will come to know what actually a schema is, what is a table, what is a query and so on. Okay, generally, so we came to know what actually DBMS is, right? So now what is database management system? A database management system is nothing but it is a computer software application, right? So this is an application which is used to manage our database. Okay, so for that reason we are going to call it as database management system. Okay, so generally a general purpose DBMS is designed to allow defining the database and creating the database, querying the database, updating the database and all the other administration capabilities also. There are many databases available today, but among them there are some well-known DBMSs which include MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, Sybase, SAP and many other databases are available. Okay, so now first of all we'll be discussing about the terminology and overview of what actually DBMS is. So as discussed, database refers to the set of related data. Database management system relates to the software which is used to manage this particular data. So basing upon the different types of functions provided by the database management system, the tasks are divided into four main functional groups. Okay, the first one is data definition. So in order to access data, first of all we require data, right? So to insert some data into the database or to insert some data into the table, we need a table first of all, right? So for that purpose we have to create that particular data. You should be able to modify the data or you should be able to remove the definition of that particular data if you do not want the data anymore, right? So this is one of the category, and the second one is updation category. The functions include insertion, modification and deletion of the data. Third function is retrieval, that is after inserting data there should be a possibility to retrieve the data and use in several types of applications. And the last one is administration. So whenever different users are using the database administration should be also there to control how the users are using the database, what kind of functions they are performing on the database and how many number of users the database is supporting. So any kind of system failures are occurring. So these kind of things must be done with the help of administration. So the database administrator is responsible for doing all these kinds of things. So the database management system has to perform four functions. The first one is data definition, updating of the information, retrieval of the information and administration of the information. The next is applications of DBMS, what not. Wherever you go, our DBMS follows us, right? So whatever application, whatever industry you take in the present day, there is no application which does not have any database management system, be it a library systems which are computerized, flight reservation systems, inventory systems, content management systems, and all the websites so which we are using today. Every application is going to use the database management system. So we'll have a short description about RDBMS. So previously we discussed about DBMS, right? DBMS is database management system. RDBMS is nothing but relational database management system. The only difference is that DBMS can use any of the data structure, but in RDBMS we are confined to use only relations. So relations in simple terms are nothing but tables. So RDBMS is nothing but it is a database management system which is based on the relational model, and this has been invented by E.F. Codd. He is the scientist of IBM San Jose Research Laboratory. Okay. So prior to RDBMS, we usually have hierarchical databases and network databases. So the use of hierarchical databases and network databases is confined due to some of the reasons. And the reason why relational databases are being very widely used is their ease of use. So shortly we are going to discuss about the advantages of RDBMS and why we are going for RDBMS even though we have hierarchical databases and network databases. So the first advantage of RDBMS is that RDBMS use a simple data structure called table, right? So all of us know what actually a table is and what does it contain. See, a table is a combination of rows and columns. So in RDBMS, it uses a simple data structure called table. And the second advantage is multiple user access. RDBMS allows the multiple users to access the database simultaneously because it is having different locking protocols and it is having different transaction management properties. All these things we'll be discussing as part of our theory classes. Okay, no problem. But for time being, understand that RDBMS is going to use locking protocols and transaction management properties, and these properties help RDBMS to enable multiple user access without any problems in accessing the database. The third one is privileges. As already told, RDBMS consists of different types of privileges. That is, a database administrator can allow a particular user to access a part of the database, or if he don't want to allow that particular user, he can revoke the permissions from that user also. So in this manner, access privileges are also very much helpful for making RDBMS as a widely used database. RDBMS also enables the users to access the database from far away from the network. That is, it provides client server architecture so the users can remotely access the database. Okay. The next one is speed. Even though the table or relation data structure is not very faster when compared to the other data structures, because other data structures are also there which perform more faster than the table data structure, but for normal applications this table data structure or relation data structure is fast enough for most of the applications. So for this reason, and also now the processor speeds are increasing and the memory cost is decreasing and the storage costs are also decreasing. So for this reason, most of the applications today, they are using RDBMS as their main database management system. RDBMS also provides a lot of tools for maintenance, that is to maintain, test the database, repair and backup the databases. There are many options which are available to maintain the RDBMS. So this is also one of the advantages. And the next one is the language which RDBMS is going to use. So RDBMS supports a generic language called structured query language. Shortly we are going to see what actually a structured query language or SQL is. So it's simply like a English like language. Okay, so people can easily acquaint to this structured query language and they can write queries. Okay, so they can write easy queries or they can write complex queries with a smaller little amount of knowledge on what actually an SQL is. So now we come for the actual discussion of what is SQL. So SQL is nothing but, it is abbreviated as structured query language. So SQL lets us access and manipulate the databases, and SQL is an ANSI standard, that is American National Standards Institute. So SQL is an ANSI standard. So now we are going to see what capabilities does SQL have. See what SQL can do. See, SQL can execute queries against a database. You can write queries. You can retrieve the data by writing the queries. You can insert records into the database. You can update the records into the database. You can delete the records from the database. You can create new databases. You can create new tables. You can create stored procedures. You can create views. You can set permissions on the tables, procedures and views. So most of the words which we are discussing here might be new to you, but all these things when we are discussing in the later sections, we are very much or we will be very much acquainted with all these different types of terminology in the later sessions. So we'll just have a brief introduction to the history of MySQL. Generally, MySQL is officially pronounced as MySQL. So generally, it is an open source relational database management system. The My in MySQL has got its name from the co-founder Michael Weden's daughter. Okay, so on his daughter's name he has kept that particular name as My, and in the combination the structured query language has been kept. So in this way we have got the name called MySQL. So MySQL is generally an open source, that is the source code is available under the terms of GNU, that is general public license. Okay, so you can download your MySQL code and you can change the modifications according to your requirements also, because it is open source, it is freely available. You can make modifications according to your own applications also. So previously it is MySQL is owned by a Swedish company called MySQL AB, but now it is the complete ownership has been taken by the Oracle Corporation. Also, MySQL is a central component of LAMP, which is a web application software stack. I have already discussed about what is LAMP, what is WAMP, what are all the acronyms of all these things in the previous videos. So please check out in those previous videos. I'll be putting the link in the description box. But for now, LAMP is nothing but it is an acronym for Linux, Apache, MySQL, Perl or PHP or Python. That is, the Linux is operating system, Apache is a web server, MySQL is the RDBMS, that is database management system, and you can write the language, that is the language which you are going to use in this software stack is either Perl or PHP or Python. Next important thing is that MySQL is written in C and C++. Having known about the history of MySQL, so now we'll see what actually MySQL is. Okay, so MySQL is the most popular open source SQL database management system. So it is which is presently developed, distributed and supported by the Oracle Corporation. So now MySQL is a database management system. I already told you that what is database management system. It is a software which is used to manage databases, right? So MySQL is a database management system. Most importantly, we have to know the difference between DBMS and RDBMS. Okay, so most of the people are going to get confused about what is DBMS and RDBMS. Even though the terms which we are discussing in this one are not understandable right now, in the forthcoming discussions we will be making it clear. So the first thing is that DBMS applications store data as file. So general DBMS means a normal database management system, that is you can store data in the form of a file, that is you can store data in the form of a text file. So you can also call it as database management system, isn't it? So now coming to, but RDBMS applications store in the form of a table only, that is a table can be also called as a relation, so hence the name RDBMS. So the second difference is in normal DBMS, data is generally stored in either a hierarchical form or a navigational form. So normally in our file system, so we are going to click on a particular folder. So you are going to store some files. You will be having again some subfolders. You are going to store some files and so on. So in this manner, a regular DBMS, a file system will be using hierarchical form or a navigational type of accessing. But coming to the RDBMS, each and every table in which we are storing the data, it is having an identifier. And this identifier is nothing but it is called as a primary key. Okay, we will be discussing about what is primary key and what is foreign key, how to create a primary key in the next videos. Okay, and the third important point is that normalization is not present in DBMS. So whenever you are using a general database management system such as file system, you will be getting some flaws or there are some drawbacks which that data present in this DBMS is not useful for certain applications. But in RDBMS we have a concept called normalization, that is you can convert the data which is in the table according to your requirement. That is, there are different types of normal forms called first normal form, second normal form, third normal form and BCNF. So all these different types of normal forms tells us that they ensure that if a particular table is in a particular normal form, it ensures some functionalities. Okay, The fourth difference is DBMS does not apply any security with regards to data manipulation. See, generally, normally if you open a particular file, you cannot find any of the security, even though you can hide a particular file. But with respect to data which is present inside the table or not in the table, with respect to data which is present inside a text file, you cannot find any of the security mechanisms. But RDBMS on contrary defines integrity constraints, that is, if a particular entry in a table is going to support a particular constraint, that is, if it is going to satisfy a particular condition, then only the data is eligible to be stored into that particular table. So here we are going to use different properties called ACID properties, that is atomicity, consistency, isolation and durability properties. Okay. Next, fifth difference, DBMS uses file systems to store data, so there will be no relation between the tables. Generally we do not have tables at all, so there is no relation between the data which we are storing as part of file system. But in RDBMS we are storing data in tables, and these tables in turn have the relationship with each other, where we are going to discuss about the foreign key constraint whenever the two tables are having relationships. Okay. Next, sixth difference is DBMS has to provide some uniform methods to access the stored information, but in RDBMS it supports a tabular structure, and the relationship between these tables can also be done. Okay. The seventh difference, normal regular file system does not support the distributed database concept, but RDBMS supports the concept of distributed database, that is client server architecture can be supported in RDBMS. The next difference is DBMS is meant to deal with the small data, that is it supports single user. If there is more amount of data, then you cannot use a regular file system, so then you have to go for RDBMS. So anyway, we will be discussing about what is file system, what is DBMS, what is RDBMS in a more clear and concise way in the next theoretical discussions about DBMS subject. And the last difference is that examples of the general DBMS are file systems and XML, and examples of RDBMS are MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, Oracle, etc. After knowing about what is MySQL, now we have to discuss about what are the different types of database. See, generally any computer programming language is going to have data types which represent the type of data which a variable is going to store, right? In the same way, MySQL is also having three main types of data types. The first one is text data type, and the next one is number, and the last one is date time data type. So according to the different applications, according to the different reasons how we are going to store the data in our tables, so in accordance to that you can use different types of data types. The first one is char in bracket size, that is you have to specify the size of that particular variable in character data type. So how to declare a variable in a query, how to create a table, how to insert data, we will be discussing in the next practical session. So the char data type is going to hold a fixed length string, so it can store up to 255 characters, and the next one is varchar, which is nothing but variable character, it holds a variable length string. Okay, and there are different types of things like tiny text, blob, medium text and all other things. So mostly we are going to use either char or varchar when we are going to store the string type of data in our database. And the second type of data type is number types. So we have tiny int, you can specify the size. So generally minus 128 to 127 is the normal thing, and 0 to 255 is unsigned, and you can use small int or medium int or int of size or big int, or if you wanted to use the floating point you can use float, double, decimal and so on. Okay. So the next third type of data type is date type, which represents variables which holds the different formats of dates. If you wanted to store date, okay, so simply you can give a data type called date. So the MySQL date format is year YYYY. First comes the year, and next comes the month, and the last comes the date. And the second type of data type is date type, which represents a combination of date and time. And the next one is timestamp. So you can use here date, time and up to seconds also. Okay, and the last one is time. So you can also have year as a data type. Now we shall go for SQL commands. Generally we have communication languages to communicate with each other, right? So in the same manner we have SQL commands where the user can communicate with the backend database using these SQL commands. So a user can give a command so that he could talk to the database. So if he wanted to create a table, there is one command. If he wanted to delete a table, there is one command. So like that, these SQL commands are the instructions which are coded into the SQL statements, and these statements are used to communicate with the database to perform specific tasks. So there are different types of tasks. So whatever task you wanted to perform, you have to give a particular SQL command. Okay. So now SQL commands are majorly grouped into 4 categories depending upon their functionality. So the first category is DDL commands, or data definition language. So these SQL commands are used for creating, modifying and dropping the structure of database objects. See, generally DDL means data definition language. So you are going to create the definition of the data. That is, creating the definition of data means in order to insert the data, there should be some data that is in the form of a table. So all the things which are related to create, all the things which are related to drop or alter your database or your table will come under this data definition language. Okay. So the commands are: create database, to create a new database; alter database, you can modify the properties of the database; create a table, that is you can create a new table; alter table, to modify the properties of the table; create drop table, it is going to delete the table; create index, so you can also create an index to make the searching faster. And the last one is drop index, you can also drop the created index if you do not want to have it. The second category is data manipulation language, that is DML. So these commands are used for storing, retrieving, modifying and deleting data. That is data manipulation. Manipulation means you are changing, right? So you can take the data from the database, you can update the data from the database, you can delete the data from the database. See, the select command is used to extract the data from the database, update command is used to update the data in the database, delete command is used to delete the information or data, and insert into command is used to insert new information into the database. And the third category of SQL commands is transaction control language. As I already told, RDBMS is having a transaction support, right? So this transaction control language is going to have commands like commit, rollback and save point in order to work with the transactions. That is, commit is going to save the changes of a completed transaction. Okay, so whenever it has been committed, then it cannot be undone. So if you wanted to roll back the changes, that if you are not sure about what work you have done in that particular transaction, you can roll back. And the save point is also another type of command which creates points within the groups of transactions in which to roll back. That is, you will be having some different types of save points. So if you wanted to roll back the database to the previous save point, you can roll back to that particular save point. That is, let us say you have save point 1, you have save point 2, you have save point 3. Now the database is in between save point 2 and save point 3. So now if you wanted to roll back, it will be rolling back to the save point 2, because all the previous information which we have in the database is already committed and it is safe. So this is about transaction control language. Okay. So the fourth type of category and the last type of category is data control language, which is also called as DCL. As I already told, the database administrators is going to have different types of privileges to either have the access to the database. That is, if they wanted to give access to the users, they will be granting the permissions. If they wanted to revoke the permissions from the different classes of users, they are going to use the revoke command. So this ends our discussion about what is SQL, what is a database, what is database management system and everything else. So what are the different types of commands we have? So we have DDL, DML, TCL and DCL. So with this we will conclude our this session's discussion. So in the next sessions we will be discussing about the practical sessions of how we are going to execute all these different types of commands. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to Joshua Talks, because sharing is caring.